All right, we're back in a new session. Let's see if I can remember how buttons do a thing. We're trying to find a hammer. A statue of Thor, who, yeah, is kind of a dick in a lot of the stories I'm reading. In fact, a lot of the gods are... Like, Loki is known for being the mischievous one, but it really seems like the gods in general are really mischievous and dishonorable and manipulative and douchebaggy in general. It's just Loki's the one that's smart. And all the other gods are assholes that are dumb, as far as I can tell. Although Loki also has some strange moves. Here we go. Atreus advanced combat. Atreus has gained confidence in combat will now support Kratos by physically attacking enemies when he sees an opening. These abilities can be upgraded in the skills tab. Yeah, we've done that. Whoop. Oh, it's a really big wolf. That's a big wolf. Wow. We haven't seen you guys since like the intro. I kind of forgot that this game was full of wolves. Axe in the face. Axe in the face.
Glad that's over.
Well, that was unpleasant. There we go. Making some progress though. Such as the bizarreness that is Loki's many children. I think I mentioned before that Sleipnir was one of Loki's children. But there's actually a series of them, including Hel and Fenrir. Which, none of them really came out normal. Which is to say, they don't really resemble frost giants or Aesir, which is what you call the most of the Norse gods. Instead, one of them's a wolf, one of them's a world serpent, one of them is a horse, and one of them is a woman. It's a girl who's half healthy looking and half monstrous looking. She essentially looks like a zombie. And she is Hel, and therefore became the guardian of Hel, which has the same name. Or more specifically, actually, I think it had a different name. That was like the Dark World. That was a bit different than just Hel. Bit different from the Marvel interpretation of being some lady with a spiky head dress. Like it's a monstrous... It's just this girl that looks like she's like half corpse, basically.
What happened to these people?
Follow the clues.
Okay. Well, scorch marks. They're all grouped together. So maybe they were hiding from some kind of fire breather. But they died anyways.
Fire. Fire bad. Look. Oh! Stop it! I don't like it! Sad dog noises. Nope. And that maybe you can interact with the plaque itself. Because I think I mentioned Sleipnir's birth and that Loki slept with somebody's horse to distract it and bring it away, and then ended up giving birth to an 8-legged horse after being gone for like the majority of a year. Like he would just vanish for about like less than a year, which is to say the 9 months of a pregnancy, and then give birth to a horse. It's a very strange everything.
Can you read it?
Veidadalr. It means hunting death. Great.
New lore added. Does that mean someone died during a hunt, or they were literally hunting death? Sounds rough either way. Loki does have two children that are seemingly regular Aesir, but I guess that's because they were born from an Aesir woman. So it seems to be specifically that when he gets pregnant, he has strange children. No, except no. The three really strange children that weren't the horse, he had with a giantess, I believe. Whereas he had the strange that eight-legged horse when he was the one that was pregnant, I think. But I think that was the only time.
Look here.
Yes, sir. Curse the Dwarf King, bane of mankind. Sounds like he wasn't a very good king. I wonder why they hated him so much.
They are dead now. Does it matter?
No, I'm just curious.
Curiosity is dangerous, boy. Stay focused.
Curiosity is dangerous, boy. See, I let the dialogue play. Now I don't know where the thing was that popped up, so I could read it. It's always a back and forth. Where's the new one? I think that's the new one. Ultor has escaped his binds yet again. Instead of flying off this time, he seeks revenge on his captors and is determined to turn Veithirgard into ash. We seek shelter in the outlying caves, where we found sanctuary in the past. Our king assures us his next chain will be unbreakable. If anyone can build an unbreakable chain, it's Mortsognir, architect of the great stronghold of Konsungard, leader of a glorious new age in Veithirgard. All hail the Dwarf King, protector of man. These people seem a little friendlier for all the good it did them. I will acknowledge there's a strange relationship with spoiler culture that comes up when you start talking about the legends that this stuff is based on, where some people will act like all of them are spoilers for the game and others will not, and so on. Generally speaking, saying in any certain terms what will happen in the game in advance is a spoiler, but I don't consider discussing the actual legends themselves outside of the context of the game as being a spoiler, even if the game ends up using events from said legends in it. It's like how we know the story of Icarus. So if Icarus showed up in a God of War game, we would be like, oh my god, his wax wings melted when he flew too close to the sun. Spoilers, how could you bring that up in advance? Ah, you spoiled the game. Like, its story exists in so many forms outside of this one. If anything, when it comes up, you're like, oh, that's cute, they did the thing with the stuff. Or like, that's how they interpreted it. So it's kind of nice to know the things. So that's kind of why I'm taking the approach of reading them alongside as I go. And some of them will come up first in the game, and then later I'll catch up with them in the reading, and some of them will come up in the reading and come up later in the game. There we go. Got a boat. Ta-da! Where do we find Odin's statue? Thor's statue, sorry.
How do you even begin to build statues this big?
Dwarves are resourceful creatures. Annoying, but resourceful.
I guess they must have been pretty important dwarves.
Oh yeah, and people were correcting me about dark elves and dwarves being different from each other, but there's actually no real reliable source to confirm that. Oh, that's definitely Thor's statue. You can see the tiny hammer. Well, it specifically has the small hilt, so he has to use it with one hand.
Got another story?
Very well. There was a horse. The horse sought vengeance upon his enemy, a stag. But he could not kill the stag alone. The horse met a man, a hunter, and made a deal. He took the man's bit and bridle and allowed him to ride in a saddle on his back. Together, they killed the stag, and the horse tasted victory. But the hunter would not release the horse and made a slave of him.
So getting revenge cost him his freedom. Hope it was worth it.
It was not.
I wonder if that's a reference to it or not. Like if that's a reference to a story that I don't know necessarily.
Do you hear that?
What, the monsters that you can see with their line of sight? New location found. Vithigurd. Like a good example is he referenced the tortoise and the hare earlier, but he himself told the tortoise and the hare story differently. So the implication there is that if you know the story of the tortoise and the hare, you better appreciate not only the story itself, but the way that Kratos was riffing on it in his particular personality and style. And so I think that kind of is an in-game representation of what it's like to know the legends this is all based on, and then seeing what the game does with those things. Do I have to activate it or anything? Yeah. Okay, it doesn't seem to really matter. Hello. That whole time I'm doing that animation, they're like actually fighting back here. Whoops. Oopsie. Aw, I missed it. Woohoo! It's not. That was not a big deal. I gotta re-find. What was the arrow button? Shit. Square. Okay. It's a difficult control scheme to remember, just because there's so many inputs in it. So I've got to recalibrate every session. It looks like I haven't adjusted yet. There's the mantle button. But as far as the gods being assholes, I rediscovered the context of Sleipnir's birth, which is that the gods... what did I just move? Oh, there we are. It's probably that. The gods wanted a wall around their kingdom because they felt like they were threatened from the giants and so on. So they wanted a wall. Reasonable. Okay. But they didn't want to build the wall because they're assholes. So they want somebody else to build it. So they somebody came by. He's like, I can build your wall. And he asks for the sun and the moon and Freya's hand in marriage. Which is a lot. That's a bit much. In fact, whenever you hear someone reference... Whenever someone asks for payment and they're like, I'm not asking for the sun and the moon here, they're probably referencing that story. Either indirectly or directly, whether they realize it or not. Although asking for the sun and the moon isn't the most creative idea ever, so it could be that they just coincidentally came up with that separately, or have their own roots tied to somebody else who did separately from them. Not necessarily that same origin, just because it's kind of a maybe even semi-universal idea. So yeah, big ask, but they're like, well, we still want the wall. So like assholes, they promise, they agree to the terms while also never intending to pay them. Just kind of fucked up. In addition to that, they try to set him up to fail. They're like, okay, well, he said he could do it in three seasons. We're gonna give him 1 season. He has to do the entire thing over the course of this winter, otherwise he doesn't get paid. Ooh, neat. Dust of Realms. A formless substance found inside realm tears. Used to enhance unique properties of various talismans. That's an unusual find. Like, he'll never be able to build the wall in only like 4 months or whatever it was that the season is, or 6 months. I don't remember. I think a season was half a year in their terms. So they're setting him up to fail. But then he's like, fucking deal, I'll do it. I can do this. And he's actually going to accomplish it. He's doing it distressingly from their perspective. Horns of Ithergood. I've seen horns used by warriors or hunting parties to signal others, but these horns look fancier than most. They must have belonged to someone important here at Vithagard. I bet each of them would fetch a nice bit of hack silver. Who's here? There you are. I'm afraid to retract my weapon because it's holding something up, and I'd have to go all the way back to where I was to put it back. But I might be going the total wrong way for that to ever come up again. Oh, why do you have to suck? Alright, well. I'll have to find out later what that was for. They're intending to con this guy. They figure if they set the terms so strictly, he'll make progress at building a wall, and they'll not have to pay him because he didn't do it fast enough. And so they'll get a bunch of labor for free. But then he's actually going to accomplish it, and they're like, well, fuck, what do we do now? So they're like, well, Freya, or whichever woman was being married, I thought it was Freya, but I could be wrong about that. It was like, well, I'm really mad at Loki for coming up with this whole scheme, because this was Loki's idea, this betrayal of a scheme, but it's the gods' fault for agreeing to it, because they're all complicit in being devious assholes at that point. I want Loki's head as a punishment for this. So then Loki's like, well, shit, now I gotta fix this. So Loki tries a bunch of different things, and eventually what he does is he transforms into a mare to lure the guy's horse off, because he uses the horse to carry the stones from a distant mountain. That's where the resources come from. That's where the sound's coming from. Holy shit, that's big. That's a very big dragon. I wasn't really expecting a dragon. I haven't reached that story yet. Jesus Christ! Stop it! 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 That was really startling. So he lures the guy's horse off, fucks its brains out, has its kid, and all that. And because of that, because he was gonna just barely finish the wall on the last day. So because he lured the guy's horse away, he wasn't able to finish the wall on the last day. So even though he did 99.9% of the labor and 1/3 of the time he originally said that he was going to do it, they're still like, well, nah, you didn't do the job to the letter of the promise, so you don't get any payment. And the guy is like, that's bullshit, that's unfair, you cheated. And then Thor murders him. So, God.
Thor statue on that island. That must be where the spirit's father is buried.
The Norse gods are such assholes. I can't wait till I get back to the Scythe story so I can tell that one, because I want to have a refresher on what it was. But I'm pretty sure Odin just kills a bunch of farmers for fun, basically, in what vaguely seems like a parable, but isn't really. He's mostly just a dick. There's a lot of examples of that. I never opened that chest. I got distracted by the fighting. I'm looking forward to getting to the Scythe story to see if it's what I remember it being. There we go.
There's something over there.
Fenrir got totally fucked too. There's a lot of just not happy stories because the Norse gods are just massive assholes. And most of the stuff comes down to their own paranoia and or their own fear of their own impending death, or what I can only assume is knowledge of the incoming Ragnarok. Odin seems to continually screw everybody over because he has all these visions of prophecies of the future and all the danger that's going to be coming at some point, and as a result, he betrays all these different people, and he's the one that wants the wall, and he'll attack and imprison various people because he thinks that they're based on this prophecy that he feels that they're going to be the ones that are complicit in the fall of Asgard. And as far as I can tell, it often feels like his betrayal is what makes them the enemy. Makes them enemies of Asgard in the first place. I hear a bird, but I'm not sure if it's the right type of bird. So while fans of the Marvel stuff might think that these characters are all like lovable and all that. A lot of them kind of aren't. A lot of them are pretty irredeemable in their source material in the old legends. They're kind of like a lot of gods that we're used to these days kind of come with this. Oh, it's just, yeah, it's just regular birds. Die. We're kind of used to gods having some vague idea of morality or redeeming qualities or some kind of moral to their concept or their stories, but a lot of Norse stories are just about douchebags stabbing each other in the back constantly and then dying and kind of deserving it at that point.
I see something over there. Hold on. Let me read this.
Right, I got cut off when they talked on the boat, I think, earlier, but people were correcting me about the idea of whether dark elves and dwarves are actually different from each other. We'll get to that in a second. Cost of the hunt: 6 wolves, 2 men. Low do they call me. 13 draugr, 9 men. Low do they call me. 3 tatzelwum, 6 men. Low do they call me. 1 troll, 1 and 40 men. Low do they call me. 1 dragon, 9 and 90 men. Low do they call me. Sounds like these people weren't very good at hunting. Maybe they should have just stuck with deer and boar. So hunting a dragon killed 100 men, basically. Ah. But yeah, both. What happens is there's two confusions. One is the idea of giants and frost giants and whether or not they're different or not, and they all just are kind of referring to like Jotun and stuff like that. And as far as I can tell, just they're all frost giants. And also, like the same terminology is used to refer to both dwarves and dark elves, and never really clarified in any of the source material. So while some people kind of think they might be different, there's not really a lot of definite reason to think that. Is he about to attack? He's about to attack me. Oh. Hey, Dark Souls, how you doing? This is a bit of a familiar scenario I find myself in all of a sudden. So it looks like the staircase is dangerous.
I am aware of it, boy.
I am aware of it, boy. Hi there. Is there actually someone behind me, or is it just that? But yeah, like Neil Gaiman's thing is all researched and based on a lot of sources, and even he clarifies that he calls dark elves another name for dwarves. Which, if you're used to, there. Obviously, if you're used to like Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, you're like, nah, or D&D, because those words mean different things in other universes. But as far as all like reliable sources go, the two terms are used interchangeably and never clarified. As far as we can tell, they just are the same thing. Ah, there's nothing here. Oh god. No, god, no! Okay. Does he attack this direction too?
I guess so. But it sounds so sad.
But it sounds so sad. Yeah, it's chained. It's a bad time. Ah. Stop that. Is that you doing that? Oh, yeah, it is. You're being very rude, sir. I would like you to stop. There, now I can get the horn. I'm technically out of combat now, I guess. I don't know, maybe it'd be easier for all of us if we just let him out at this point. Hey there. Neat. Ah, 3 runes. It'll give me whatever's inside. And then probably release him. The Eyes of Odin. Hey there. Very focused on me. Are the runes up there? I don't see them. No. I don't think he likes being tied up. Oh, there's 2 paths here. I'm not sure which one to take first. We'll see. Ah. Ah. Yeah. I'm actually gonna die. Poison bad.
The Dragon Shrine. Mother had a story about 3 chained dragons at Midgard. The shrine must be related.
There were 3 runes on the pedestal.
We gotta find the other 2 and free them.
It does not concern us.
I know, but it's what Mother would have wanted.
Yo, maybe stop.
Guard your emotions, boy. Your enemies will not hesitate to use them against you.
Yes, sir.
Of course we're gonna do it. What do you mean it's a really bad idea? Sure be nice if he stopped trying to murder me while I'm doing it though.
Not very many birds. This must have been a small settlement.
Ultimately, one of the reasons why we have inconsistent terminology when it comes to stuff like dark elves and dwarves and other elements of every other part of this thing is that none of this was written down. These were all verbally told stories, oral traditions, and none of it was written down until like a century later, like a century after it wasn't even in use anymore. Christianity came through and replaced all of these stories with its own, and largely just like they just didn't serve their purpose in society that they used to. They were just old stories. Then we have Snorri Sturluson or Snurlson, I remember correctly, which was the story I was reading directly back then. Like that author wrote down the only version, as far as I remember, that we have. Like his collected works are basically the entirety of Norse mythology in written form.
Destroy the other ones.
If it was your mother's wish.
Yeah.
You are too eager, boy. It may attack us, and we will be forced to kill it.
Oh. Good point. I'll be ready.
We will see.
Ah, another seal. So if you're used to like the Quran or the Bible or many other religious texts, and you're used to reading through those or even just looking at them and seeing how big those books are, for example, you might be expecting a significant quantity of text. And that's definitely not the case. Snorri Sturluson or Snurlson or his book, which I read through the entirety of when I took my Norse mythology class in college, is very short. It's a very flimsy, tiny paperback book. is what you use as your official textbook for that class, which is highly unusual for a college course. It's the smallest book I had for any class. And the Neil Gaiman one is like a kind of fleshed out, not even necessarily because of extra details, but just because it's kind of like rewriting it with modern sensibilities of like characterization a bit more personality here and there, and a bit more like, this is another set of runes, isn't it? That's a gate. There's another one for the chest. There's another one for for that. We're gonna keep track of this. It's just kind of some updating language. Just because you have like a very old story that was written in a different language originally and translated, and then also being outdated in its own way. So it's more like it's updated for readability for the most part, while keeping the basic stories still in their original form, despite how bizarre they are. Yeah, it's a really scant amount.
I guess this actually was a pretty big settlement.
No longer.
So really, when it comes to a lot of questions about like, who is this character, or how does this part of the narrative work, or are these two different words referring to the same people or two different types of people? Oftentimes the answer is no one knows, and it's stuff that's like hotly debated within the circles that obsess over the stuff, but it's largely seems to be still to this day inconclusive because the information just isn't around. And it wasn't recorded. Whoop. Meanwhile, we have like name drops towards like characters or titles for characters, where the story behind that character or the story behind why that character has a particular title, in a series of narratives where people tend to have stories for why they have titles. For example, Odin has an entire story behind every title he has. A lot of those things are just dead ends. You can hear it named in one particular story as like an aside, as part of like a larger continuity and universe. And that's the only hint towards that information you'll ever get in some cases, because whatever connection existed elsewhere in the mythology is just lost to time. Like it's easy to imagine it as being the equivalent of like if we had to like understand all of like the Justice League by finding like a grand total of 20 comics of the entire universe, and then that we just had to piece together what we could from that. So as a result, we only have a handful of stories, and they're very much grouped around particular characters, especially Thor, Odin, and a whole lot of Loki. And we thankfully have the creation myth, and we have the Ragnarok, so at least you have a satisfying start and end the story. But it leads to situations where if we want to argue back and forth about whether or not elves are dwarves and stuff like that, we're going to be very unsatisfied by our attempted answers. Because in many of these cases, the answers will not exist. Although the comments did bring up an interesting answer for why the guy's skin was blue earlier, which was interesting. Which is apparently that like working with silver can turn your skin blue, which is a different problem altogether. And that's interesting. It's fun to learn things. So so his skin color is more of a symptom of him being a blacksmith above all else. Isn't that interesting? Where am I missing a rune? We'll have to see. Maybe it's ahead of me, or maybe it's behind me. Hey, down there. Seems an awful bit dangerous around here. There we go. Did that do anything useful? No? Hit? Oh, that probably... Because I couldn't get through here originally, right? I think I just opened that up. Yeah. Oh, hello. This could be bad. Oh, he's damageable. Oh, I'm dead. Whoops. May have forgotten that I wasn't healing between fights. Whoops. Oh, I'm back here. I gotta damage this one again. Huh. Interesting checkpoint location, I suppose.
Atreus, here.
What? Oh, just trying to call him back to me. But as far as the building of the wall story goes, it's a mixed bag. Like, obviously the guy was an asshole for asking absurd things as payment. Not only someone's hand in marriage, which is just demanding that they... Like, that's demanding that that person be pledged to you for labor you did. Although, given the era, that wasn't necessarily the most completely nuts morality back then, which is distressing in its own right, I suppose. But asking for the sun and the moon, literally, like not figuratively, but literally, is some next level shit. So I think it's not wrong to say he was in the wrong for asking for those things in the first place, but he still did the labor. Like, if somebody asks an unfair price, don't fucking say yes. Seems... Oh, there's the third one. Seems like a straightforward idea to me. But they said yes, and then they screwed him over by sabotaging his work when he was 99% done. And then they killed him when he was mad, which, yeah, I'd be mad. Thor comes across as a prick. And everyone laughs. Just to make them, just to spell out how much of a douchebag they all are. Hey, 2 out of 3 for my rage meter. Just to spell out how douchey they all are. When they sabotage the horse so that he can't finish his work, they all stand there and laugh at him. Like, they watch him trying to work and trying to toil, which this guy has been spending all season doing this job, and he's on the final leg and it's all coming crashing down. Like, what an incredibly stressful, horrible situation to be in. And even though they're doing the work, even though he's doing the work for them, they all stand and watch and laugh at him all day while he fails. And it's like, these guys are all, I don't like any of these people. I think one of the only sympathetic gods I've read about so far is Tyr, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that guy. Alright, let's try those guys again next time.